Good evening, everybody. This is a meeting.
Sorry, Councillor, it's still starting up.
It says it's streaming on mine.
It says setting up on the YouTube channel. Nearly there. Okay, there you go.
Good evening, everybody. This is a meeting of the Neighbourhoods and Public Spaces Committee. This is a meeting of the Council which is being held remotely. The meeting is being recorded and streamed via YouTube, where members of the public are able to watch the meeting. The recording will be available on the Council's website following the meeting. Please note that any comments posted on the chat feed of the Council's YouTube page during the recording of this meeting will not be monitored by the Council. Thank you. Item 1, apologies for absence. I think we're all present. Okay, item 2, declarations of interest. Councillor Davis.
Yeah, I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary interest in item number 4. As a member of Essex County Council, I sit on Basildon's Youth Strategy Group.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Hang on, there's a few more hands going up. Councillor Morris was first.
Chairman, I am a member of the voluntary youth sector within this borough, so it's not pecuniary. So I just thought I'd better declare an interest.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Morris. Did Councillor Buckley?
Chairman, as a county council member, we obviously are involved in youth services, so general interest.
Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, Councillor Smith, do you wish to do likewise?
Member of Essex County Council, member of Never Main Ward, and everything else I've told the monitoring officer. Oh, and Julie, Councillor Fellows would like the Zoom link, please.
Right, can we carry on with the meeting, please? Item 3, minutes, confirmation of the minutes of the meeting held on the 21st of July. I'm just trying to work out who was here. Right, we'll go around because I'm not sure who was present at that meeting. Councillor Ferguson?
In favour, Mr. Chairman.
In favour? Was that in favour?
Yeah, in favour, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Davis?
In favour.
Councillor Morris? Councillor Morris, you're muted.
Abstain.
Councillor Buckley?
In favour.
Councillor Hollyman?
Yeah, 4.
And myself in favour. Thank you very much. Okay, item 4 is the Youth Zone project. Now, the Basildon, we approved the budget on the 13th of February 2020. We included capital and revenue funding for the provision of youth facilities in the borough. The report was brought to this committee on the 11th of March that authorised an options appraisal on potential sites for the delivery of a youth zone in the borough, working with the National Youth Organisation on side. There is a detailed report before you tonight. I'll now ask Mr. Brace to go through that, and when Mr. Brace has finished, we can take questions. Mr. Brace.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as you have said, Chairman, this report follows on from the early one where officers were set some work to do to bring back to you. I would say the major change, obviously, between that decision and tonight is COVID-19, which has had a huge impact on the country. What is not fully understood at this time is the impact that there is on young people. There is a lot of information out there that is that is generalised. It is thoughts and anecdotal information regarding the impacts that COVID may be having on young people. So as part of the recommendations tonight, not only for what potentially the youth zone may deliver in the future, but more importantly, it's to undertake a consultation with our young people in Basildon to understand what their issues are now and what other services that we currently provide we may need to adapt to their needs, as well as passing that information to our partners so that we can assist in trying to ensure our young people do not feel the full impact, and that we can get in some early interventions where we can. So that is one of the recommendations tonight, that to help us not only shape Youth Zone, but also to understand how our young people are suffering currently. We have been working hard on trying to find a site. That has been quite a challenging task. We have, as detailed, have identified a site within Basildon Town Centre, but that land is not in our ownership. So we are asking tonight if we can go ahead to negotiate to get the youth zone on that site. We are also asking for authority to start the process of agreeing to develop the youth zone and the legal agreements around that. That obviously takes a long time usually to get to the point of deciding that, but we'd like to get on, and that will all be subject to obviously having a site to develop. At the last meeting, the chairman raised concerns regarding how young people were going to get to the youth zone if it were in one particular part of the borough. And as detailed in the report, Onside have provided to me some assurance that they do work quite hard in other parts of the country where in fact it's rural areas that young people are coming from, where there is no public transport whatsoever after 6 o'clock at night. And they have worked with local partners, bus companies. They have had their own transport that they've provided access, therefore, to a far wider range of people. And you can see from the map in the report how they have drawn people to the centre to be able to do that. They also try to do that with sustainable transport, i.e. they don't want huge amounts of cars arriving and parents dropping young people off. So it is part of their ethos. We've also discussed that where it is particularly challenging for people to get to a youth zone, the outreach does happen, and they do look for other smaller facilities where certain youth work can happen. And I think that will be quite important during COVID and the impact of COVID, because young people may be slightly fearful of going out, travelling to a place where there's lots of people. So I think it will be wise to listen to young people and maybe look to even more outreach if we do develop it. So hopefully that gives some assurance to the committee that certainly Onside are fully aware of that consideration. So with that in mind, we will be working over the next few weeks on that, and we would hope to bring a report back to you in September, certainly with some progress of where we are, because I think it's important we keep you up to date. And there may be some other decisions depending on the level of our negotiations. So the recommendations are set out in the report, and I'm quite happy to take any questions regarding that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Brace. Can I, before we go on to that stage, can I just point out that in the discussions with Onside, because we'd raised the question of connectivity across the borough, etc., they did come back, and it's on page 8 of the report, on the engagement and outreach for the proposed Basildon Youth Zone will target young people from across the borough. They do outreach offers as well. They do in Carlisle, Oldham, etc., which are beneficial. And obviously this is where I would hope that with help from the County Council, perhaps we could find facilities if required across the borough as outreach centres to the youth zone. When we come to the recommendations, I will be adding slightly to recommendation 3 to add it's obviously that the committee delegates authority to the Assistant Director of Public Spaces in consultation with the Head of Legal and Democracy to proceed with negotiating provisional various legal agreements and structures with onside. I want to add, which should include particular clauses to ensure accessibility to young people from across the borough. So it's covered in the negotiations with onside. Also, I have raised the question, and Mr. Brace has been kind enough to talk to onside. I was concerned about if it's in the Basildon Town Centre, of its usage by too many people from outside of the borough by ease of transport, by train, etc., etc. And there is something included, particularly in the one they do already in the negotiation, in the contract, in effect, with the one they do in Barking and Dagenham, basically, and I'll read it because they've sent it to us. The tenant shall promote and operate the premises in accordance with the authorised use in such manner as to give priority to children and young people who are resident in the borough for both membership of and attendance at the premises, provided always that this clause shall not be construed as restricting membership or attendance by children and young people from surrounding areas where there is no prejudice to residents of the borough. So it's clearly given a top priority to young people from the borough. I would also, Julie, I've got the words of that particular amendment, if you haven't. On the consultation, I'm always wary of consultation. And I'm not sure how we're going to do this consult. It's right we do this consultation with young people, but it's how we do it. And I, as the chairman of the committee, would like to at least have sight of what is going out for consultation, and I take that as accepted rather than have it needed to be put in words every time to do this. I will say that because I accept, because Mr. Brace has worked very well with me since I've been chairman of this committee, and I do trust, and I think there's a mutual trust on the way we do things. Sorry, that was a bit long-winded. Mr. Brace wants to come back now.
Chairman, if you'd like, once we've got our first draft ready, quite happy to share it with you, but then also happy to share it with other members for comment. Quite happy to do that at the committee.
I think that's an excellent suggestion, which I'm sure other members of the committee would welcome as well. Thank you, Mr. Brace. Right, members. You're all rushing to put their hands up. I've just seen Councillor Davis first, quickly followed by Councillor Buckley. He beat you by about half a second, Malcolm. Alan.
Thank you, Chairman. Just from my involvement with the Youth Strategy Group, as I declared earlier, I know that the young people are very happy to be involved and to be consulted with on the youth. So yes, they've expressed their delight at being involved. But on the matter of the consultation taking place, how widely will that consultation take place? Would it go out to schools or certain year groups in schools in the local area so that people are able to be part of the consultation? Is there any sort of fleshing out of that at all at this stage?
Well, it will be covering all ages, Councillor, that the centre covers, which will include consultation with special needs, as well as I think it's from 8 to 19 and then up to 25 for those with special needs. So we will be targeting that age group. We will be working through our partners so that we can go through schools and through other agencies to do that. We'll be working with our county partners as well. And we'll be able to sort of channel that through the local delivery pilot, which we are currently operating, which means we have actually got an implementation group which is quite linked around young people. So we're quite confident we're going to be able to get a far-reaching consultation to young people, and our partners will assist us in that because it's also providing information to them regarding their state of mind, particularly we think around the issues of mental health. So it will be, although it will be for the purpose of our young people and to help shape Youth Zone, it will also be very useful to other partners.
Thank you, Mr. Brace. Councillor Buckley.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. couple of points. First of all, Councillor Morris was absent from a chunk of that meeting. I know we do have a code which we're supposed to adhere to, but he did miss quite a substantial amount. I don't know if he even heard your recommendations. So obviously I'll defer to Julie on the advice as to any action we should take, but clearly one of the issues with Zoom meetings is that members do need to be able to hear, understand everything that's gone on. So perhaps just on that, if
Yeah, hold there then, Malcolm.
Yeah.
Julie, is Councillor Morris trying to get back in?
Yes, he did come back in briefly, but he seems to have gone again. I think I'll double check the protocol. I think the protocol says that if a member leaves, after a certain amount of time, the meeting carries on without them. Oh, looks like he's back again.
He's back.
There he is. Yeah.
done. Oh,
This is what happens.
Yeah,
This is what
I
happens.
think the idea is to pause for a short time and let the person
Okay.
try to get back in.
Let me.
yeah, I'm not
hang on, Malcolm.
trying to divert any blame on anybody, but obviously members need to know what's going on.
Yeah, hang on, Don. Did you miss much? I was trying to read out a suggested recommendation, addition to a recommendation.
Muted, Don.
You're muted. You're muted. You're still muted. Well, just indicate if you can hear me, Don. Can you hear me? You can. Okay. I added to recommendation 3, which should include particular clauses to ensure accessibility to young people from across the borough. That was what I added. And since then, Mr. Brace has made a couple of answers to Councillor Davis. And now Councillor Buckley is going to join in the meeting. Malcolm.
Thanks, Chairman. Yeah, a couple of points. One of my big concerns over this, and I think it's reflected in some of your comments, is the accessibility to users across the borough. Looking at the report, there was an indication of the geographic spread of users in the Manchester youth zone. But the difference between Manchester and Basildon Borough, Manchester is essentially one large city which radiates around a central point. That's not the case with this borough, where we have obviously a principal centre in Basildon, significant centres in Billericay and Wickford, and equally still important centres at Leindon and Pitsea. So I think there is an issue there in terms of accessibility and the wish to access a facility in that location. And I do recall it wasn't, and this wasn't you, when the Sporting Village was built, one of the main criticisms, and I'm looking at Councillor Davis for this, was it's not in Pitsea, and Pitsea Paul was going, they won't travel there. And I think that argument really still runs as far as the youth zone is concerned. I think it's less relevant for the Sporting Village because of the range of users. So I think there is an issue with that. It does say that they will arrange some forms of access, bus or whatever else it turns out to be. And you were around, I think, at the time when I got elected to the council many years ago, unfortunately. And there was a project then that was called the Youth Bus, which you probably recall, that used to run into Wickford and into Basildon Town Centre. I think it ran to the other principal points as well. But it died a bit of a death and wasn't well used. So I have serious concerns about putting any facility in Basildon Town Centre. I'm also very concerned about the consultation. not the content of the consultation. And I think, as Mr. Brace said, he's share that with the committee. We would obviously have the opportunity to address any detailed concerns of it, but much more around the timing. Obviously, we've still got the virus at a height, and looking at the increases in infections, I don't know whether we're going to get a second wave or not, but nevertheless, people are not mixing at the moment. And that is going to have a consequence with the consultation. So I think the consultation can't really be carried out in a proper manner until the sort of semi-lockdown that we're in at the moment is lifted, so that people have the freedom to move around and to take part, whether that's done face to face through schools, as was mentioned, or whether it's done through various forms of social media. They all have their shortcomings. And because of that, I think that makes recommendation 1 premature, because until you've completed the consultation, you don't really know what needs to be put into the project. And I know we've all had a presentation and we've seen some lovely pictures from Barking and Manchester and wherever else it was. But we're in a situation where we're talking about tailoring for Basildon's needs, not for Manchester's needs or Barking's needs. And they are different. The different communities, different needs, different people. So I think this whole item on the agenda is premature. And the only recommendation which I would agree with at the moment is recommendation 5. One other point which you did mention was about outreach work. And yes, outreach work is valuable. Essex does do outreach work. And I can recall situations where in Wickford at Shopgate, we used to get groups of youths hanging around by a Shopgate post office, for example. Essex Outreach worked with those youths. I'm not aware that there's an ongoing problem now. As a Shopgate resident yourself, maybe you have a different view on it, but outreach does exist now. And I think there is a lot to be done working between the county and the borough to deliver those services and to deliver them to the right people. And I don't think this project being rushed through for the basically so that the leader can claim he's done everything in the borough. I think rushing it through is going to be something we're going to repent at leisure, but deliver at haste. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Can I just say this first of all? The consultation, as I see it, is the effect of COVID. What goes on in the youth zones, that was quite clear on the presentations. The concept is clear. The activities operate, as I understand it, similarly in each of their youth zones, the bulk of the activities. This is a consultation with youngsters to see, is there anything different we need to do because of COVID? I think that's important. And that consultation can take place anytime between now probably and November, in my view. The consultation, it's not a rushed consultation because we know what the youth zone will deliver. And let's just knock this on the head. It's so the leader can say, I've got what I wanted. I'm pushing this forward now. I'm keen on it for youngsters across the borough. I think the youngsters will attend it because you mentioned Manchester. I looked at what they do in Carlisle, which is very similar, where youngsters have to come in from fair distances like Billericay, Wickford to the youth zone. It is not made up like Manchester, it is different. And it's interesting that, as I've heard a rumour, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that these youth zones are so good that even the county council's thinking of doing one now at Colchester. So, you know, it's only a rumour, of course, but I may be wrong. So I think these recommendations tonight are very important because unless we get a site, it won't happen. We need to look at that now and get on with it. The consultation with youngsters, I think, is important. And I think Mr. Brace has outlined already the type of youngsters and the areas we'll be looking at. I see it with youth organisations as well, such as Councillor Morris's scout groups and things like that. right across the borough, and I think it will be successful. This is about providing a facility which is operating elsewhere in the country with high levels of success and bringing one of these to the borough. Now, if your group, Councillor Buckley, is opposed to giving these youngsters across the borough the opportunity, so be it, so be it. But I'm for it. I think youngsters from Wickford will go. I think youngsters in the borough have been deprived long enough. Councillor, did I see Councillor Ferguson with his hand up, was it? No, Councillor Brown, I will bring members in first of the committee first. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to thank you for calling this meeting tonight during the summer holidays to talk about one of the most vital issues that I think we face within our borough and opportunities for young people. And I appreciate the work that you've done in bringing this forward. Also, I'd like to thank you for the amendments that you made around the consultation. I'm going to speak first of all as a councillor for Pitsea North West, and you don't have to sit for too long in my surgeries to listen to parents concerned about youth activity for their young people to go and do. And numerous occasions I've had parents sitting in front of me in my surgery saying to me, there isn't enough activity for young people to do during evenings, during weekends, during school holidays. And that is what this activity, and that's what this item before us on the agenda is to be able to do. But I also speak on this item tonight as a youth worker. I've spent the last decade of my life delivering youth work. Apologies, I don't know if I need to declare it as a member interest. I'm not a youth worker within Borough or Essex, but I understand the challenges that young people face. And reading the report, and Mr. Bracey referred to it as anecdotal evidence, this has been the last 5 months. The last 5 months of my working life has been the toughest 5 months of the last decade because of the challenges that our young people are facing in isolation, in feeling lost of opportunity, and feeling disconnected from their wider community. And that concerns me. And we need to do something tonight to change that and to address that. I hear concerns about accessibility, and I understand those concerns about accessibility, and I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the assurances that you sought from on side about bringing that forward. I'm very clear through my work and have seen it on a day-by-day basis that young people travel for good youth work. If they enjoy the activity, they're prepared to travel, they're prepared to engage in it, and it's that we need to put the effort into. I also value the work of outreach centres and believe that can have a huge impact in being able to get people to travel on to different activity. If we've got one central hub and then outreach centres that can engage young people, I think that's vital. But what really frustrates me is that concern about things dying a death, because that just stinks of doing nothing. Doing nothing is not an option. Doing nothing for our young people cannot continue. That's how we've got into the challenges that we currently face. And we really need to put that right. And I think this council over the last 15 months has really led the way in listening to young people. 2 weeks ago, I think one of the nicest Zoom calls I joined in on and saw online was of the leader with Mark Noble talking to groups of young people about the challenges that they face and what they want to see in society. People care about our young people. This council cares about our young people. We've led the way. We'll continue that way with the consultation. But we'll deliver something that is valued by our young people and used for the purposes of benefiting their lives.
Councillor Morris, you had your hand up. You need to unmute yourself, Don.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll tell you where I stand on this. The youth sector in throughout this borough is huge. There are many different groups apart from Scouts, Guides. There are numerous youth groups spread throughout the whole of this borough. The best thing a council can do if they want to help the youth in this borough is help those youth groups there. You don't need a centre for it. What you need to do is put the money in to something that already exists. Putting money where you're doing it is not going to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. I've seen no other members indicating from the committee, so I'll call now first of all Councillor Smith and then Councillor Brown. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm speaking as a councillor who represents one of the many walls that makes up Basildon Town Centre. My concern is making sure wherever this is placed in the Basildon Town Centre, whichever ward it affects, that the residents whose houses or properties or flats put back onto it enjoy the same quality of life as they have. With such pleasant weather like this, if they have access to a garden or a balcony, they should be able to not suffer worse noise. I know there's noise in the town centre, the odd blues and twos, but young adults, young people, whatever you wish to call them, when they leave do get a bit boisterous, a bit loud. And I think whatever we decide to put in the town centre, we must always and paramountly consider the needs of the existing residents to make sure they're not drowned out by noise. And as you said, Mr. Chairman, you're pushing for this, and I really hope tonight on the record we get you to push for preserving the same quality of life our residents in the town enjoy. It's a great project, but we mustn't forget the people who live in the town and they're a part of the town. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
But thank you, Councillor Smith. Let me give you an assurance as best I can, and that is whatever the site is which is chosen, that under normal planning regulations, the building and design of the building should and probably would require soundproofing, etc., etc. But those things will come about in any planning application, any design stage much later in the system, which I'm sure you and other members will be able to make comment on. Councillor Brown. Or Mr. Brace wants to come in first. Sorry.
Sorry, that's fine. Thank you.
Mr. Brace, sorry.
Councillor Smith, just to give you a bit of assurance, wherever a youth zone has been built, and I think there's 14 now, crime has reduced. Antisocial behaviour has reduced. Young people have felt more engaged. You do have to be the member of a youth zone, and you are accountable for what you do. All the young people that attend on-site, and we've met quite a few of them now, are all fully engaged in what they're doing, and they want to be in the on-site building and part of that youth centre. So if they do something that stops them going in it, i.e. causing aggro outside or whatever, then they won't be able to go back into the facility. There is a contract between the users of the site and on-site. So this is about giving young people the opportunity to have their centre in the town centre and respect those around them. And certainly, having been to visited one site, seeing the young people arrive and seeing them being bag searched. And interestingly, we asked, why did you not disengage those young people by asking them to have their bag searched? And they said, well, we don't ever search bags. It was the young people asking us to search their bags so that everybody in the centre felt safe. So I think this project has the ability to turn all that on its head. We will see a reduction in crime, not an increase. We will see a positive outcome for young people. And I think they get blighted a bit too much around all the problems that there are in the town and other places. I think this gives them an opportunity to show how good our young people are in the borough.
Thank you, Mr. Brace. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment first of all about what Mr. Brace has just been saying. When we visit Back and Dagger before, the committees that they have run by the young people who are members in conjunction with on-site are very aware of the privilege of having this kind of facility. And they make the rules themselves, they make the sanctions themselves. And talking to community leaders within the areas around there, strongly felt that this facility had in fact made a better relationship between the local community and those young people. And as Mr. Brace had said, tangible evidence both from the police and local community and council that antisocial behaviour had fallen in those areas. So this isn't just going to be a facility for our young people, it is our local communities that are going to see a tangible benefit to them. Just going back to transportation, we've heard that on-site do try and facilitate this, and yes, they do. Many of you know my brother and his family live in Carlisle. This idea that the Carlisle youth zone is easy to get to. I don't know how many of you know Cumbria well, but you know, once you get a mile or so outside the centre of Carlisle, you are talking about the Lake District, you are talking about farming communities. And the same with Oldham and the youth zone there. You are talking about rural Lancashire. You are not talking about a metropolitan city. And the links that Outreach have been able to do with local communities and schools, and using having contracts with them to allow a certain number of memberships, if they can use their minibuses and all of this, they have that way of being able to facilitate those things and have experience of facilitating those things, and it has been very, very successful. What I would say about its placement, the town centre in Basildon is probably the easiest place to get to within the borough. It is not ideal because we do not have the connectivity across our borough that we want to see. And as you know, the administration, we are doing things to try and change that. And as we move forward with our town centre and our regeneration and our strategic planning, transportation across the borough and connectivity is something that we ourselves will improve. But I want to reiterate what has been said, that this has been very successful in terms of what young people want. It has been very successful in working with groups that already exist. There is tangible evidence within Carlisle of the mental health of young people improving, and the cases of mental health and the cases of self-harm being greatly reduced just in the short time that that centre has been open. This is something that will radically change the lives and opportunities for our young people. We spent quite some time talking to the young people who from different centres. And one thing that really impressed me was the engagement they got from businesses, from mentors, from people across all kinds of different employment that were there to mentor young people into apprenticeships, into university places and into jobs. And right now, with everything that's going on, our young people need all the support, all the chances, all the opportunities they can. And our young people deserve a facility like this. And so it is something that is not for Gavin's glory. I mean, seriously, is that the best you've got? This is something that David's been working on for almost a year. Give the man some credit. This is something that our young people deserve. And I think to put a halt on it and to have this idea that because of COVID, we can't engage with young people. All of you know I'm a teacher. I've been teaching my kids all the way through the lockdown. All schools are back in September. Most schools have school councils, they have assemblies. We have been able previously to contact them, and we can do so again. We can contact scouting groups, we can contact lots of different groups that already exist and get their input. And in other areas, those types of groups have then started to use the facilities that such a building offer rather than having to pay rent in other buildings. And it has been something that's been a success for them also. So I think we need to get on board and get excited and acknowledge the hard work that's gone into this and that we'll need to continue to go into this, but know that our young people deserve this kind of facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Can I just comment on what you've said? I do know Carlisle. I've been there twice to watch my son play football, and to be honest, it's not a big place as you think it is. And suddenly you're in the country, and next moment you're in the town. It's unbelievable. So I think that's a very good example. Can I also say that when I was mayor for 2 years, I visited a lot of schools in the borough. Beauchamps, Billericay School I visited Woodlands, James Hornsby, etc. Talked to a lot of young people, and some of them are pushing was, you don't do much for us as a council. So the onside, the youth zone wasn't my idea. It came out, but I've supported it because I believe the youngsters in this borough do deserve something. They haven't had anything like this. Other places have got it. Why not Basildon as a borough? I will always push for the connectivity and accessibility, and I believe it will come about. I'm disappointed tonight to hear Councillor Buckley and Councillor Morris, because when we had onside present and doing a presentation about it was all about, the decision to move forward on this at that meeting was unanimous. Now tonight, it appears to be the Conservative position has changed. It's a shame if it has. I really mean that. This isn't a Gavin Callaghan idea. This is a Basildon Borough Alliance of Councillors idea. And I would hope that you won't join the alliance, I understand that, but I hope you would support it as something good for the youngsters in the borough. Right, I've got no more speakers indicating. Just making sure. So I will move to the recommendations. I will take them en bloc with the amendment I added to recommendation number 3. So the committee approves in principle to enter into partnership with Onside to develop a youth zone subject to detailed legal agreement. That the committee delegate authority to the Assistant Director Public Spaces in consultation with the Assistant Director Growth to negotiate with the landowners of the preferred identified site for the youth zone in order to ascertain purchasing of leasing opportunities. That the committee delegates authority to the Assistant Director Public Spaces in consultation with the Head of Legal and Democracy to proceed in negotiating provisional various legal agreements and structures with Onside, which should include particular clauses to ensure accessibility to young people from across the borough. That the committee authorises a consultation exercise to be undertaken with young people from the borough, seeking to better understand immediate and future challenges and help shape the delivery priorities of youth provision in the borough. And added to that, Mr. Brace has indicated we will talk members of the committee before the consultation goes out. And item 5, that a further report providing an update on matters set out in the above recommendations is brought back to this committee in September 2020. So I'll ask members to vote. Councillor Buckley.
Against.
Councillor Hollyman.
Against.
Councillor Morris.
Against.
Councillor Davis.
In favour.
Councillor Ferguson.
In favour.
And myself in favour. And I'll say this, and I'll probably be all over Facebook by those people in certain areas. As soon as I say something publicly, I'm proud to cast my casting vote in favour of the recommendations. The Conservative group has made their position quite clear tonight in opposition to a youth zone in Basildon. I think that is a crying shame. Thank you, members, for the meeting. And that is it. Have a good evening.